All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thrive 2020 NoCo, our virtual summit. And I know everyone is just joining in. I see the doors to our event have opened and the attendees are coming in. So welcome. And we're just going to hang for a couple of seconds here while everyone enters the meeting. And we're so glad to have you here today for day 2. We're talking all about sales and marketing. So please get your questions ready if you don't have them already. There are some amazing minds on this call today. And if you ever needed help with sales and marketing, this is your day to get it. So let's just kick it off. My name is Melissa Kellogg Lueck, and I'm a life and business coach for women building extraordinary businesses. And I wanted to just tell you or actually introduce you real quick to the rest of the panel. And we're going to talk more about them, give their full bios in just a moment. But I'm joined here today by my fellow event team leadership, Alison Proffit and Shannon Richardson. And we also have our panelists, Cindy Skalicky and Nick Armstrong on the call. And we're, like I said, we'll introduce them more in just a moment. But I wanted to tell you a quick story. 3 weeks ago, I had a call with Alison and Shannon about putting this summit together. And that all happened after all the stay-at-home order came down, and we were all told to stay at home, and everything closed down. I myself went into my cave for about 3 weeks and threw a fit and had a tantrum about how awful this was going to be for my business and my life. And I had to teach my kids it's home now and all these things. So I was very frustrated and sad, and as many of us may have been. And that lasted for about 2 weeks, and got a lot of good coaching in that time period, and came out of that feeling like I had to make a decision. I could make a decision of how this period of my life was going to go. And I decided that I wanted to up level. I wanted this to be a time in my life that I could really show up better for my family, show up better for my kids as a teacher, show up better in my business, show up better for my audience and my clients. And so out of that change in mindset, I came up with this idea to have a summit like this. But it was a really small idea. And my husband said I was crazy. And so I talked to Alison and Shannon. We had just started the Weibo network, which Alison's going to tell us about in a little bit. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to introduce this organization to the business community here. And so we started going about talking to all of our ideal people that we would love to have involved with this summit. And every single one of them that we called or emailed said yes. And let me just tell you, the Northern Colorado business community is amazing. These people have stepped forward with their time and their talents. They never asked a question of what was in it for them. They are all here to serve you, to help our Northern Colorado business community and our economy thrive. And so I just feel so honored and humbled to be a part of this group. And that's how we got here today. So I just feel so blessed. And so I wanted to tell you that and that quick story. And I'm going to pass the mic on now to Alison and have her tell us a little bit more about Weibo. Alison?
Thank you so much, Melissa, and really excited that you brought this idea to our team here and that it's come together so beautifully. So I am, as Melissa mentioned, the managing director of the Weibo Network Northern Colorado chapter. Weibo stands for Women Entrepreneur and Business Owners. And so the Weibo Network is actually the primary sponsor for this event, and it's one of Colorado's fastest growing professional advisory groups for women. And we offer masterminding and thought partnering while building community through the shared experience of being a women business owner. The organization recently launched a Northern Colorado chapter where we serve Fort Collins, Loveland, Greeley, and all of our surrounding communities up here in the region. And we really encourage you to visit WeBoNetwork.com to check out their event calendar of networking and learning events. Everything is virtual at this point, which means it's accessible to everybody. There's 4 chapters in the Colorado area. And the truth is that we actually were launching a lot of information sessions in March. We had great registration for those sessions. I think we had maybe like 60 people registered for those sessions, and everything started to shut down. So we did launch here in April. We've had a couple of really great sessions. We've got great speakers lined up for the next upcoming months. Krista Berry, who many people know here, who heads up She Leads, she's our speaker for our May session, and that'll be virtual. So this is really our way of giving back to the Northern Colorado women business community. Obviously, we invited men into the fold here too, because all men know women, and they also have great minds and great things to share in a summit format like this. So I'm really excited to be here on the panel today, presenting some information about sales and marketing, which is what my business is all about. And then also a big thank you. WeBo Network is extending an offer for a 20% savings off of annual membership for any Thrive Summit attendees. So just really grateful for their financial and kind of emotional support in getting through putting an event like this together. So thanks so much, Melissa, and I look forward to chatting more on the panel.
Thank you, Allison. And now I'm going to pass it over to Shannon Richardson, and she can introduce herself and her business.
Thank you. So I just want to say, when Melissa reached out to Allison and I just less than 3 weeks ago, I think, with this idea, we jumped in wholeheartedly, and we thought, is it possible to pull this together? And like Melissa said, we started saying, like, who would be our dream speakers if we put on these different sessions? What kind of panels do we need? What's important for business owners to hear about? And every single person that we reached out to that we wanted to have as a speaker said yes. And so I just want to also comment on how much our Northern Colorado business community collaborates. And that's a special thing that not all areas and business owners experience where they live. So thank you to all of our business leaders and business owners that jumped on board with us today. So as Melissa and Allison mentioned, we are part of the leadership group for WeBo, Women Entrepreneurs and Business Owners, and I am the membership lead for the NoCo chapter. In my business and professional life, I'm a financial advisor and partner of the K&R group with Merrill Lynch. We are a fiduciary financial planning firm that does goals-based wealth management. That's a mouthful. So just to kind of break that down, most of you understand the term fiduciary. It's become more prominent these days. Fiduciary just means that you're an advisor that puts clients' best interests first. Merrill Lynch takes that stance, and then my partner is a certified financial planner, and by designation is also a fiduciary. So goals-based wealth management, what that means is that we're not stock pickers. We're not going to say we can get you the best rate of return. It's more about sitting down with our clients, finding out what their goals are, and then really monetizing and working that backwards to say what's the least amount of risk that our clients can take and be able to accomplish these goals. And we do that by management on both sides of the balance sheet. So meaning that we help them with managing assets. We also help on the liability side and restructuring debt and improving cash flow, not for also for individual households, but also for business owners. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator today, which is Melissa Kellogg Lueck, and our true founder of the Thrive Virtual Summit. So Melissa had a huge milestone this month in that she celebrated her 15-year anniversary of being in business as the owner and founder of the Avanti Creative Group. Melissa is a life and business coach supporting women business owners and teaching sales and marketing. And she serves her clients a couple of ways. She does one-on-one coaching, but she's also created this signature online course around marketing that she develops. So it's her own proprietary course, which is really cool. Melissa is a sought-after speaker and writer, and I'm sorry I didn't tell Melissa I was going to share this today, but I just found out this morning that in the beginning of her career, she actually was hired. She had this gig of researching small claims court cases for Judge Judy. I mean, somebody has to do it, right? Why not Melissa? And so Melissa moved to Colorado after earning her MBA in marketing from Hofstra University in New York because she wanted to be closer to her boyfriend. And I am pleased to announce that that boyfriend is now husband, and that they share 2 beautiful children and a golden doodle named Ginger. And before I pass it over to start the panel, I just want to share one more fun fact about what a cool, well-rounded person that Melissa is that she's an avid ice hockey fan. So much so that she plays on an adult women's ice hockey team, and the team name is Hot Flashes. So very witty. Of course, for a marketing person, they would have a witty name like that. So with no further explanation, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our sales and marketing panel moderator and the true founder of the Thrive Virtual Summit, Melissa Kellogg Lueck.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. Dang, she makes me sound good. All right, so we're going to dive in. I have a couple housekeeping items for all of you attendees. This is not a spectator sport today, people. This is your opportunity to get all of your questions answered. We are your consultants in chief today. So whatever you need, put it in that question and answer box. You're going to go into that Q&A box that you see on your PC. It's at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a iPad or something, it's at the top of the screen. Go into that Q&A box and you type in your question, and we're going to spend the next, hour going through all of your questions. And so we are here for you. We didn't want to create this event as a big lecture fest. We wanted to make it useful and practical with practical strategies. And so we are here for that. So put those questions in. You can start entering those now. I get the pleasure of now introducing our esteemed panel. And so first we have Alison Proffit. And like I said, she is the team, one of the event organizers today. And Alison Proffit is the owner of Proffit Coach Consultancy. That's profit with 2 F's because she always says more profit is always better. She helps service providers and small business owners build, perfect, and manage highly effective sales processes that increase profitability long term. Specifically, she excels at helping clients embrace a positive attitude toward the sales process, learn proven strategies surrounding what to say and how to say their sales messages, and apply learnings via role play in group setting to master sales conversations, flow, and objections, which are key components of sustained sales confidence. So earlier in her career, Alison worked for 15 plus years as a human resources in corporate America. There, she acquired deep business acumen of dozens of industries and roles, all of which advance her effectiveness with her clients today. She's passionate about teaching others how to obtain the outcomes they can produce at the intersection of a business's mission statement and its outgoing sales messages, which is something we're going to talk a lot about today. Alison realized she had a natural ability to execute an effective non-slimy sales process while working for our local Constant Contact, a global digital marketing company. So since 2019, she has taken it upon herself to teach others to do the same through Proffit Coach. She's known for saying, sales is like oxygen for a company. Without it, your business will cease to exist. Alison hails originally from Philly, PA, home of the Broad Street Bullies, Philadelphia Flyers, and has lived in Fort Collins since 2017. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, singing karaoke, and dancing right before a Zoom call. Did you dance right before the Zoom call? No.
No, I was busy posting social media stuff for the summit today. So, but I love that. Yes. And I've done that with Cindy before. We actually danced on the start of our Zoom call. So nice. Got to bring fun in.
Yes. All right. And next we have Nick Armstrong. Nick is our geek in chief behind WTF Marketing. He's also a dad, an author, Ignite, Pechakucha, Startup Week, and TEDx speaker, audio drama enthusiast, and award-winning entrepreneur. Nick organizes community events like Fort Collins Comic-Con and Startup Week Fort Collins. His local efforts landed him a prestigious spot as one of BizWest's 40 Under 40 in 2016, the Colorado Association of Libraries Library Community Partnership Award in 2018, and one of Colorado Biz's Gen XYZ Top 25 Most Influential Young Professionals in Colorado in 2020. Wow, and we have him here with us. This is amazing. Alongside an amazing team of super geeks, Nick built out Fort Collins Comic-Con to benefit the Poudre River Public Library District and has raised over $120,000 to date for the library to encourage youth literacy through comics. Welcome, Nick. We're so glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Cindy is last, but certainly not least. Cindy Skalicky opened the doors of her company, On Point Communications, in 2015. She provides public speaking coaching and brand consulting to founders and teams who seek to master their message on stage, online, and virtually. Cindy has presented messaging workshops to Microsoft, Rocky's Venture Club, at universities, and for companies undergoing mergers and acquisitions. During the pandemic, this girl knows how to get it done. She launched 2 new webinars. One, to help others nail their virtual presence on Zoom, which we all can use that. We'll talk a little more about that today too. And one to help people write a personal passion piece to advance their personal brand. Previously, she worked at global advertising and PR agencies and earned a master's in rhetoric from the University of Georgia. Cindy hails from Chicago, is sad that the Cubs cannot play yet, and has lived in Fort Collins since 2007. Welcome, Cindy. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks, Melissa. It's great to be here. I'm excited to hear some questions. It's going to be a great time.
So, I know. We're all done with the introductions now. So let's dive in. I have a first question I wanted to ask and hear from each one of you on the panel. Since none of us have been through a pandemic like this before, we've all been pivoting and examining our own businesses. So I would love to hear from each one of you. How have you pivoted, if at all, in your own marketing and sales? And what have you learned so far? And what have you, even more importantly, learned about yourself through this process?
I'll jump in here. So I really love this question, and I recognize there's people that are on attending this that this might not apply to, but I'm a service-based business, so I'm not a brick and mortar retail store or restaurant or anything like that. So initially when this all started, I had a lot of thinking around what's the new thing I need to launch? What do I need to change? I need to change what I'm doing. Everybody's changing. And I really got like contracted and lost in that and spent a lot of time like putting down on paper like different program ideas and researching different marketing tools and hiring somebody to do more marketing. And about 2 weeks ago, I finally realized, oh, I already have something really amazingly great. I have this great mastermind program, and it creates results in helping small business owners learn how to sell more effectively. And as soon as I stopped looking into like all this other stuff that people were saying you should be doing, I filled my program with 7 participants. And it was like, as soon as I realized I didn't have to respond in ways that everybody else was saying I needed to do, I got back to my zone of genius and started making money. And certainly understanding that's not something that may be reasonable for some businesses, but I think it's really important to look at like, what do your customers really need? And if how you deliver that already can fill that need, like keep doing that. And it takes a little bit of emotional processing and getting your mindset right around all of that. And I think we all had to go through that process of like, oh crap, what am I supposed to be doing? Something different than what I always do. Oh wait, no, I can keep doing what I'm doing. Maybe it's a little different. Maybe there's more connecting that you do in your sales conversations. But yeah, I thought I needed to pivot. And then I realized, oh, actually I don't need to pivot as much as I thought I needed to.
Who's next? Cindy?
All right, I was going to let Nick go, but I will go. That's fine. So when it was Friday the 13th when all of this kind of hit at my house, because I have 4 kids all in school, and it was the day that their spring break started. I will never forget going to Sprouts that night. It was snowing and there were no onions to be found anywhere in the store, which I found extremely bizarre. But all of that to say that for me, on a personal level, I have needed to figure out how to manage having all my kids at home on school Zoom calls all day long, which is why I'm doing this call in an office building, and have not had issues with connectivity. So hopefully that will be the case today too. But about 2 weeks in, I started to count. I was on Zoom all the time, and I started to count how many Zoom calls I had done that were just networking based. And I got to like 33 or something that felt like a lot more than normal. You know, I'd had some workshops that had to be canceled that were in person, couldn't do those. So I began to see news articles about Zoom fatigue and how people were getting restless. And it's very hard to stay engaged as an audience member. It's also hard to present. It's a new platform. Sort of turn the tables on that and show people the value of running really efficient Zoom calls that don't always end in sales, right? They don't have to end in dollars, but the networking capability that exists there and the potential partnerships or referrals or connections that can come from that, they need to stem from your own abilities to frame this 30-minute Zoom call and make sure that you maximize it, because there's nothing worse than getting off a call and going, what was that? Like, why did I do that? And what did I get from that? Or they talked for 22 minutes and I talked for 3. So I've found ways to help people at home who are stuck at home have a different way to master their message in this time.
So my answer to this question is coming in 6 parts. Each part is an hour long, and each one has a $500 product that you're going to have to buy in order to continue to the next part. I'm just kidding. One of the first thing that I did when the seriousness of this thing really became apparent. We were just at the tail end of startup week when this really started getting to roll. And I'm really thankful for that timing. I think luck has a lot to do with how well you fare during a pandemic like this. So it really can't be underplayed. But as a sort of, curator of the marketplace of ideas that is Startup Week and Fort Collins Comic-Con, I immediately sent out some emails like, hey, what are we doing? What do you need? What are we thinking? What's going to happen? And along that Zoom fatigue, I was like, we're going to have to really be aware of this content shock that's coming and really try to avoid duplication of efforts and all this other stuff, because a never-ending content buffet, especially when your identity's been disrupted. So right now, none of us have a third place. Some of us barely even have a second place. You can't go into the office. If you can, you're really lucky. And so you have the, this identity crisis that has this gap that has to be filled. And a lot of people looked at all of this cool stuff that was happening, like Mo Willems' doodles, and you can go and check out the Met's operas online, and you can check out Broadway shows for free, and you can download all this stuff, and Frozen 2 was released, and so there's all this stuff that just like floods into that gap. And a never-ending content buffet, whether it's a real buffet or virtual buffet, is not a good thing. And you get saturated with all of this. So I think that in terms of how I pivoted, let's figure out what everybody is doing, and then let's create some sort of a map of all of this, and let's figure out how to identify these things and get these, avoid the list of lists mentality, because that's just going to get overwhelming really fast. How do we really responsibly coordinate and allow people to share their best ideas? And so that was one of the first things that I worked on. Some of the stuff that happened in between there was, high anxiety stuff. We had a pipe burst in my house because of the freeze, and that the anxiety there. Anxiety is the understatement of the century when you have somebody in your house for the first time in 5 weeks and there's a pandemic on, like, hey, there's zombies outside the door, but hey, could you come and fix this pipe for me, please? It was horrible. The service professional was great. They were in full PPE and all the rest of that stuff, but still the mental weight of it. And these really minor day-to-day decisions that we took for granted before have become very weighty. And I think being cognizant of that and really diving deep into meditation has been one of the better things that I've done for myself during this time, so that I'm aware when I'm bringing anxiety into a space, especially a Zoom meeting. It can be contagious. I don't want to do that to people. So I want to make sure that when I show up somewhere, I've done, my due diligence and like meditating ahead of time, or I'm in a good mood or whatever else. So that's where I shifted, and that's where I pivoted. In terms of businesses, I haven't really been affected that much because most of my clients are in industries that aren't directly impacted by this. And that seems odd to say, but it's sometimes true. The one that I will give you a teaser for is on Thursday. That's Rachel Walker from Life's a Booch, and you definitely want to see what she has to say, because her pivot was amazing. And that's all I'll say about it. Check it out on Thursday. The Thrive conference. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, I can't wait to hear her whole story. But yeah, she's a pistol. So that really brings up such a great point, what you're talking about, Nick, that there's so much weightiness, and I know a lot of the entrepreneurs and small businesses that I've heard from and talked to are just not quite sure how they should be communicating and selling and marketing. Should we even be selling? Should we even be marketing when there's people out of work? Or and how to really find that delicate balance in our messaging and communication. So I would love to hear from the panel on that topic, and how you've answered that question when you've heard that. I'm sure you've heard that from your own clients and your own spheres. So I'd love to hear your input on that. Alison?
Yeah, I think that if you're afraid of having that conversation, that's going to come across, right? So the mindset you go into all of your conversations around is going to come across. I know that sounds really weird and a little fluffy, but there's some truth to that. So if you go into the discussion from a place of connecting, I mean, who knows, maybe there is something not even related to business that will come up as you're having that discussion that there's a commonality around, and you may end up having a referral source, or maybe they have a really interesting resource that is helpful to you, or vice versa. And so really just making sure that you're not hiding and not picking up the phone and having a conversation is so important. And so releasing the I always say, like, detach from the outcome of like it has to be a sale, and go into it as I'm going to have a conversation. And normally what I would say, if we were kind of like in a training call, I would say like all your conversations are sales conversations, but really, I mean, they all could be. You could run into somebody at the grocery store and learn that they've got some kind of thing going on. Then you want to set up a coffee call. I mean, there is so much that actually doesn't need to change in reaching out and having conversations, especially if you're a service-based business and you're able to still, deliver your services. And there are so many businesses, like Rachel is a great example from Life's a Booch. I mean, she pivoted so beautifully. I think she lost like 70% of her, because she sells kombucha, just to give some context. She sells kombucha, and most of her customer base was actual restaurants and bars. And they all closed. So her distribution had to drastically change. And she did that, and she did that rather quickly. And so it's like, pick up the phone and be curious. Coming from a place of curiosity and connection is really going to help you. And maybe, again, perhaps it's not like you're going to make that sale today, but it could give you some information to inform where do you pivot to next as these stay-at-home orders begin shifting and we go into what I would say is the new normal, if you will.
Anyone else have thoughts on this?
What was the question again, Melissa?
So it was basically, there's so much weightiness, as Nick was saying, and people that are out of jobs, and businesses that can no longer operate, and how can we like communicate and market and sell while being sensitive to that?
Well, I'll just chime in and say that there are a lot of people out of work, but there are a lot of people who are not. And so, there are people out there willing to pay for your services, and your services have value. The trick is trying to figure out which person that is and what your boundaries are as far as what you will are willing to give away for free for a while or for lower cost, and how to manage that. I've seen some trends that, and I've picked them up and I'm following them as well. All of my March and April work was free webinars, free calls, free this, free that. And just now, in fact, my last free webinar is tomorrow. And then, in May, I'm just going to begin to monetize some of that value and begin some introductory rates for the new products that I have developed. So for me, it's been a couple things, just throwing spaghetti against the wall. This is a great time to do that and see what sticks. And also remembering people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So when you're connecting with people on LinkedIn, for example, why not suggest a quick call to trade stories and learn about their expertise and see where things go? So that's a couple thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you.
And just to play off what Cindy had said, I think that understanding your value is really important. And there's a difference between utility and value. And so the utility of an accountant is that your taxes get done, and maybe your bookkeeping or something else like that, right? You don't have to do that. And so the value of that is, I don't have to learn tax law. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to stress about I'm going to tax jail. I don't have to worry about the government IRS guys coming and knock down my door because I didn't file, one form out of the 1,000 forms that I have to figure out effectively, right? So I don't have to worry about that. So that's the value, right? There's a lot of stress that's relieved by having an accountant or somebody to deal with that stress. In the same way, you as a business owner provide some sort of value above and beyond your utility. So if you're, game store, it might be that third place or whatever else. If you're a consultant, it might be, a reassuring voice, a connection point, an accountability buddy, something like that, where you're providing an extra structure of support, more so than just, I give you an hour on Zoom to talk at somebody or talk to somebody or questions or whatever. There's so much more to the value of your business than there is utility. And with that identity crisis that's occurring, where people's third place is gone, their second place is in jeopardy, having that stability, that outreach, that connection to you and your value, even if it's a little bit different. So the example I like is my Taekwondo school. They started doing everything virtually, but they didn't just like, oh, let's try and figure out how to do a strange group class. They were really mindful about how they did the progression, how they, taught each of the lessons. They made it fun and interactive, so that there's games in between. So you're playing rock, paper, scissors to figure out if you're doing, sit-ups or push-ups or whatever else. And so it makes it a lot more fun. And then you get to interact with each other. And then at the end, they give that time and space to just network and connect with each other. The class doesn't just end as soon as it's done. They get that time to just connect like you would if you were in person. And so there's a lot of mindfulness that has to go into adapting your services to this new era, but it's something that's easily done. And I don't think that anybody should really be afraid of bringing value to their community, even if it's just checking in with some sort of a needs assessment, like, hey, how are you doing? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing right now? Those questions show that you're here and caring. One of the weirdest things that I've seen right now is some of the emails coming out from the businesses that were shut down that are now reopening. They're like, we're reopening, and they don't have any details about any of the anything, are we going to wear masks? Do you need to wear masks? Can there be more than 10 people in the business at a time? How does the parking lot work? Do I need to take turns? What is it? And so Kroger actually released an entire PDF playbook of all of their practices. This is what we did. This is how we adapted. And if you didn't stop as a business owner who was shuttered during this time and pause to read that, or actually, Larimer County guidelines or other things like that, and then you sent out this massive email, like, we're reopening, that might have been a misstep. I think that it's time to take a breath. And that was actually Larimer County said these exact words: take a breath before you do anything else, and then figure out what you need to do to reassure customers, especially the more skittish, data intensive or anxiety driven ones that are not going to leave their house for the next year unless there's a really, really good reason. And so I think that it's really important to take that into consideration as you're marketing. If you do those things, then you can feel better about, asking people for money during a crisis, which, if you put it that way, feels gross. But if you're thinking about it in terms of I'm providing value for my community, it feels a lot better.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a great point, that mindfulness of really stopping and thinking about your ideal customer. and kind of shutting out all those, you know, mass amounts of data and media that are coming at us, and just slow down. Yeah, great point. I'm going to hop into some of these. We've got some really great questions pouring in here. The first one is from Justine, and she says, I'm closing my brick and mortar retail business, but have 3 months left on my lease. Is there a good way to phase in messaging, or should I go straight to a liquidation message? I've been in business 16 years. She did follow up to say she's closing for good. She has experimented with online, but it's 1% of her usual revenue. So panelists, what kind of advice would you give Miss Justine?
In terms of tools, MailChimp just launched a really cool service that you can, they give you a free.com. They also give you a storefront that you can use for a mailing list and whatever else. You can list products and have people pay you directly through that website. So in terms of e-commerce, it's really simple and really fast. The Startup Week website, startupfoco.com/videos, also has a webinar that we recorded just as this thing got started about how to get your business online and move to a selling model. If you're closing for good, understand that you might have people in the community that looked at you as that pillar of support, and that they will need to, they'll be grieving you. And so they might have, you know, anger response, or they might have a disbelief, or like, is this real? Like, why is this happening? And so they'll try and find ways to either support you or to help spread that message. Leverage that emotion and really use that to your advantage. If you have a direct connection with your best customers who have supported you or purchased from you over the years, leverage that emotion and help them spread that word. Give them, you know, copy to use, graphics, other things like that to help spread that message of where they can go to help buy the rest of the inventory, or help make sure that you are able to pay off your lease or whatever else, and figure out what you want the end goal to be before you start writing any of those messages. Because if you don't have an end goal in mind, then the messages will be scattered and all over the place.
That's a great point. And Justine, I'm so sorry to hear that you are closing. I hope it's by choice and that you're retiring to a tropical island somewhere. But if you're not, we would love to support you in any way that we can. So please reach out if there's anything further that we can help you with there. Anyone else have any words for Justine? Cindy, yes.
I just have one, and I think Alison probably has some things to say with regard to email campaigns, but one thing that I would suggest is, you know, tell your story, or else other people are going to tell one of their own about why you're closing and what the ramifications are. So I would say communicate, you know, and with a heart of service and gratitude, and helping people, you know, wherever you're comfortable sharing information about why. You know, I don't know what type of business you have, if you have, like Nick said, goods that you could sell discounted or whatnot, but sharing the information, helping them go to another person who can provide similar things, and just telling that story as openly and as vulnerably as you are comfortable doing is probably going to help you with your grieving process, assuming this was not something that you wanted to do. And finally, if you have a plan already in place about what you want to do next, how can your customers be of help to you and further your next move? You know, maybe having those clients or customers in that email list as you pivot in a large way. So be thinking ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Genevieve, well, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, says, my marketing plan so far has been based on networking, referrals, and word of mouth. I'm trying to figure out how to pivot this plan to potentially have more online presence, and I'm considering investing in an SEO and website update. However, I'm concerned that most people will not correctly understand the services I offer because I'm a CPA, and people always associate that with taxes, which I do not do. How can a website really help me find the right customers and not the wrong ones searching for tax preparation? What's our advice for Miss Genevieve?
Well, I would say before kind of going down the path of investing a lot of money in SEO and a website, um, I mean, networking can still happen in the virtual space. So if you have contacts that you gathered, you know, whether it was during Startup Week, like I know myself and a lot of other people went to Startup Week and then March happened and it's like, oh, I didn't get to do all the follow-up. You know, don't be afraid to reach out to those people and be, you know, like be the proactive one that's like picking up that phone. And I mean, certainly in terms of like the online presence, I would, as opposed to like the SEO and website update, because what you're relying on there is like for people to find you. And what I recommend is go out and engage, like go out there to find like the Facebook groups or the LinkedIn groups. Maybe that might be a good audience for you. Go out there and find where your people are hanging out digitally and give them something of value. And maybe it's creating like a webinar that you invite people to. And just because if you have a webinar and you don't have 50 people show up, like we're blessed today, we've got 45 participants on the line. I think all of us kind of look at that number like, wow, like I would love to get 45 people at a webinar that I run. But honestly, like I'm happy even if I only have like 10 or 15 people show up, because if you have 1 or 2 people in that audience that would be a great fit for you that you can engage with and provide direct value to, and be the one that's like personally inviting them versus like them finding it on a website. Because if you're paying for click, like if you're paying for like Facebook ads or Google ads and you're paying for that click, one of the things I always say is like, if you're not doing something to like capture their contact information and giving them something of value, you're paying for them to potentially just like close that window down and you've lost that opportunity. So I would say there's still outreach that you can do to provide that value. Maybe it's a webinar, maybe it's a free conversation or connection call that you do with them, so that you have that ability to explain what it is that you do while you're also finding out what do they do. Because if in that conversation they're like, oh, you're a CPA, right? You can clarify that and paint the picture of what you do through your business. So hopefully that was a kind of a well-rounded kind of like, you can still do what you've been doing. You're just doing it in a different way, but you still want to target that and be the one that's reaching out. Don't rely on paying for click. I think relying on that kind of stuff, if you have a ton of money, you have a really large audience, and you have the bandwidth to serve like tons and tons of people, like that's great. But when you're like a one-person operation, you know, you need a handful of clients, and like, and you should be good to go. So especially knowing, Genevieve, what it is that you do in your business. We've had the opportunity to connect outside of here. So would love to hear what like Nick or Cindy would have to say about.
So what I would say is get really intentional about educating your clients and your audience base. Figure out where your existing clients are coming from, whether that's, you know, tax-based CPAs that are referring out for this work, or if it's bookkeepers that are referring up to a CPA because it's something that they can't really tackle, or whether it's just a particular type of small business or a particular type of medium-sized business that needs your type of services. Get really intentional about finding that pathway. Then find where those eyeballs are. So the SBDC, the Loveland Business Development Center, the, you know, anywhere that is a hub for business activity. Now, I'm going to put a caveat on this because 25% of small business owners that we surveyed through Startup Week were not connected to any sort of resource hub. So they might be out there floating, looking at, you know, this content buffet and trying to figure out what's best for them. But in that case, instead of spending a ton of money on your website or SEO, focus instead on educational blogs, a podcast, a webinar, other things like that. Folks who have either used your services in the past, like clients that you could highlight as case studies for how to use your services and how to engage with you, or folks that have gone through a, you know, they didn't engage with you, not necessarily like folks that just said no to your services, but folks that had issues that you could have solved, that you could have prevented a ton of, you know, fiscal damage or whatever else for them. Educate your client base and use this opportunity right now to make it somewhat relevant. Like, hey, with all of the stuff that you're having to learn, including Zoom and whatever else, are you letting your taxes slide by? Are you letting your finances and your accounting principles slide by? Like, is your accountant banging down your door because you're not getting them the documentation that they need, or you're not providing them with whatever, those nitpicky things that are needing to occur right now that are just sort of not important? Figure out what that is, document it, create a checklist, and then that could be the thing that you work on with, going to those eyeballs and saying, this is what you need to be focusing on. This is where I can help you. This is whatever else. And stick to the 99-1 rule. If you have 99% really good value, educational content, whatever else, versus 1% sales, that's a really useful metric, especially if you're just trying to educate your client base. And finally, what I would say is make sure that when you are connecting with people, it's for a really useful purpose, and that you have some sort of intentional, like, stepping in process to your business. So a lot of people call this a sales funnel or sales process or other things like that. Alison can talk about that all day long, but give them a way to step into your business and engage further and engage further and engage further, and then finally pay you. And unless you give them that stepping in process right now and are really intentional about that design, any money that's spent on a website design or SEO or other things like that is just going to be nonsense. So, and have to be redone.
Great point. I love that. And just to piggyback on that, we have a question from Lorian, who's looking for some suggestions on marketing for a location-based in-person business when adding online-only courses to market to everyone. Not able to convert main offers. These would be small dollar offerings. Okay. So kind of going from that in-person, the way Lorian is set up now, in-person, location-based marketing, to switching to more of an online model. How does that work? How does that look?
I'm going to toss that over to Nick, because I know Nick on the, well, I feel like you addressed that a little bit when we spoke on the panel together at Startup Week. You cringed a little bit, but I'm going to toss it over to you anyways, because I feel like you addressed it at Startup Week a little bit.
Teaching online, especially if you're launching your own platform, is really, it's a difficult endeavor. And I'll say that much. The first thing is you have to have, a good camera, good lighting, good audio. And so you guys can't see it, but I actually have a Blue Yeti sitting right here in front of my computer. I have an HD webcam right here that I'm talking to. I've generally isolated my office for soundproofness. And so it gives me the ability to be like I'm in present, right? If you can't get good audio, can't get good lighting, can't get good video quality, you're going to really struggle in the teaching world, especially for online courses. But there are some really easy platforms that teach you how to do it well as you're learning, and also give you that marketing boost because they do all the marketing for you. That also means that your pay per class or pay per minute in some cases goes way down. And so the two that I will point out, Skillshare. And Skillshare has a really fantastic, here's how you teach online. Here's, you cannot delete the courses unless you email the customer service. So don't put up anything there that is like vital to your business interests. But if it's like a 5-minute tangent or something that you could talk about for about an hour or so, it's a really useful topic that could be easily put up onto Skillshare and split into 5 to 10-minute segments or whatever. The other is Udemy, and Udemy does a really interesting job in getting teachers onboarded. And if they promote your class for you and they were the source of the student referral, then they get a 50% cut of whatever it is that the student paid for your course, which sometimes they also run those massive coupons for things. So that's why you see like a $1,500 course listed for $39.95 or whatever it is, which is ridiculous. And then the students pay, $40, you get 20 of it because they paid in for that. So it's not consistent. But the cool thing is that they will teach you how to do those marketing efforts, and they'll also teach you how to do a course building. And so it can help you get rolling in that way. If you're going to roll your own, there are a ton of great plugins, and some of them require more website skill than others, but teachable. There's also Sensei through WooCommerce. If you already know some WooCommerce, that's super helpful. You might have to learn some membership plugins along with that, but it's a big endeavor. My suggestion, if you were just getting started in teaching online, is to start with a Skillshare or to start with a Udemy. and build from there, and really understand that it's a 2 to 4 month effort to get those first students into that course and really understand what it is that they're looking for. And also on the Startup FOCO website, sorry to reference that again, there is a Getting Started Teaching Online, which was myself and Franklin Taggart, a webinar. It's about an hour long, walks you through all the different considerations that you might want to think about. Super useful.
So I'd like to add something to that. And some of it might be in conflict with what Nick said, but that's okay, because that's why there's multiple service providers and panelists that do this kind of work. Is, they're like, different strokes for different folks. So I think if you're doing purely online and there's not a mix of online and like a one-on-one kind of mix in whatever class it is that you're offering, I do think that there should be some more like production quality around it. But I always say, don't let technology stop you. I run my mastermind, which is a mix of group and one-on-one. I don't have the stuff recorded, but by doing it in a kind of a virtual live Zoom environment, I literally use, this is my microphone. I mean, can you all hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up, right? And I use my laptop camera. I have not yet invested in all of those other things. I have just taken the position that, sure, one day I want to have more of that production quality. Sure, one day, I don't even have a ring light, guys. Everybody's like, just get a ring light. And I'm like, I don't feel like I need it. I have this beautiful window. And I think it's, from a marketing perspective, Lorian, I would say use your existing audience. It sounds like you've been in business, so contact those people. If those are your fans, reach out to them. Perhaps they would be interested in this online course, because you have to remember, like, we are all stuck at home. Not stuck, we are all safe at home. And so if all of your customers that typically were coming into your in-person location, if they're not able to come there anymore, but perhaps they want to still utilize your services and take advantage of what you have, give them that opportunity to do so. So I would say market to those people. If you don't already have an email list, which is, I think, something that has happened with some of these location-based businesses, is that they haven't been growing their email list, and they maybe haven't been growing their social media following either. And now they're kind of like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, that is a little bit of a challenge, but I think there's ways that you could reach out, either even just picking up the phone. Like, if you aren't in your business, like, pick up the phone and reach out to your customers. And then even like provide maybe a perk for your existing customer base to be able to like get some kind of referrals or something for any referrals that they send your way of people that they like. Or that they know and that they think would like your services, because the know, like, and trust factor is one of the primary things that is so important in the marketing world. And I think sometimes us as marketers assume that people know, that everybody knows what know, like, and trust is. I know I do. I just assume that everybody understands, like, people buy from people they know and they like and they trust. And especially right now where the market is flooded in the online space, where like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be listening to. If you're reaching out to your audience you already know and asking them to share what you have to offer with their people, whether it be, again, Nick made a great mention of like providing people with like, what do you want them to say in social media? What would you like them to forward along to their people? Provide them some different like pictures or something like that. Canva is a great tool for that. So hopefully that was insightful, but I would say use what you already have. You don't need to necessarily recreate the wheel and go out there and try to like go after all these brand new people. So that's my add-on to that particular question.
Thanks, Allison. Now I have a great one for
Melissa, could I chime in there real quick?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say I went down this road of online course development myself, and I'm still on it, and it's very interesting. I have an in-person 5-part Perfecting Your Pitch workshop that has I've translated into an online course to scale it. And I've taken 2 online classes about how to make an online class. And the first one, the one thing that I learned from Greg Ehler was this one phrase, and I will never forget it, and he was just adamant about it: put the learner first. Put the learner first in your online coursework, and that's true in a lot of the business that we do. But the point is, you know, instead of pushing features and getting too involved in, you know, your stuff, always be thinking about who's learning and how they're learning. So if you're just transferring something from one place to another, you have to take into account how they're learning this in a different way online. And I might suggest running a beta course that you develop first before you plunk all this money into a huge online course. That's actually what I ended up doing, and I have a course on LearnWorlds right now, and I took an amazing course from Jane Sagalovich, and she is fantastic. So that's just a thought for if you're going down that road. But test. Don't waste a lot of money all at once. Test it.
That's great advice. I wholeheartedly agree, having done that myself as well. So I think this is a great one for Cindy when we're thinking about having all these, and for Alison too. Now we're having a lot of these Zoom sales calls. So we have a question: when having an introductory coffee/call one-on-one with a new acquaintance, which could be a prospect, how much of the time should be spent describing and discussing our actual business versus how much just connecting with them as a person? I'm new at this and I'm not sure how these things are supposed to go. And even in addition to that, there's another question about politely turning down someone who wants to have an individual call or Zoom call that you don't think is where there won't be any referral opportunities, how to handle that. So maybe speak to those a little bit.
I'll pop in on those. I did see that question, and here's my thought. The first call with anyone is often unlikely to lead to a register ringing. That you have to know, like, and trust them. So how are you going to get there? You got to learn about each other. You got to tell the stories with each other. So and maybe Alison's going to disagree with me, and it does depend on the intention of the person. If they want to buy now and they're ready, awesome. Or if they came to you and said, hey, I want to buy one of your courses, Cindy, can we talk? Then it's a sales call. But if it's not there yet and it's not explicit from the person you're going to talk to, my advice is to get to know them. And the goal of the first call is to get a second call. And that's where you can talk them through more detail. And you're asking a lot of questions. Hey, would you like to set up another call? I feel like there might be some room for us to talk through a couple of areas I might be able to help you with, or referrals that I could share with you. So that's kind of my style, is like, instead of being super direct about it having to be me that does this work for them, if it's a new call, I might just try to be helpful to them. The second person that put a note in there about how do you decline an offer, I think I've only declined, and I don't even think I declined it. I almost never decline a networking call. I would be asking you, why are you so sure that the person has no possible connectivity with you and a referral person? I can't tell you how many people I have talked with on networking calls that maybe over a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, maybe even a year, have in the weirdest ways led me to big sales or new clients. And so I would be intentional about the call. And unless there's a really good reason that you don't want to have it, but I would go and do it. I would give 20 minutes or limit it, and make sure you're driving make sure you're driving the call. And I can share more about that later. I do have a webinar tomorrow on this very topic. So if you search for me on LinkedIn, there might be a couple slots left. They're definitely under 5 slots left at this point, but I'd love to connect with you over LinkedIn.
So this is my favorite topic ever. This is actually this is the foundation of my business, is actually teaching people how to have sales conversations. I think Cindy did hit it on the head that they're not always one call closes. And sales is a science and an art. there is a framework to effective sales conversations. And so understanding the components of the conversation and how you, I don't want to say keep control, but like kind of keep the ball in your court of like, this is how I want to keep the conversation moving. That takes some training, right? I mean, that's why organizations invest tons of money and resources into training their sales forces on an ongoing basis. And so if you're starting a business and you have no sales training, one of the things that Melissa didn't share because it's not in my bio is I actually launched my business and failed 4 times. But those weren't failings, I learned every single time. And after the 4th time that I kind of failed my business and decided I needed to go back into the corporate world again, is when I got the job at Constant Contact, and I worked in sales there, even though I'd never done sales before. And I learned so much about the sales process and how to have really effective sales conversations authentically so that you are building a relationship and connection. And I had the 2nd highest retention rate of customers because I wasn't just trying to close the sale. I was trying to like make sure that there was connection. They saw the value in Constant Contact. They understood the picture and they were clear on like, oh, how could this work for my business? And so I think it's like really important that you understand like how to have those conversations. So I'm glad you're thinking about it because that's great. And this is a way longer conversation that could be like not answered here, but the truth is like you have to understand like what do you need to know in what's called your customer discovery. There's multiple components. There's customer discovery, and then you recap, and then you do your value presentation. You're not talking about money or dollars right there. And then you're getting their energetic buy-in. Like, do you see how this is going to be a great fit for what it is that you're trying to accomplish? And then you're asking for the sale. And then you go through and clarify objections. And it's my favorite thing to teach this because it's where I fell down in all of my other businesses. And then when I learned how to do it, I realized I had this like magical skill to help other people learn how to do it, because a lot of it is in how you're thinking about it. And it does take good conversation skills and understanding like what's the sciencey part, what's the framework of your conversation. And if you're just going out there having coffee conversations and don't know where to take it and guide it, you're going to end up with like, where am I supposed to go now? And sometimes it does make sense if you hear something that sounds like this was just going to be a connection conversation, but I think there could be a sales opportunity. You would potentially be best served to then say, hey, you know what? I've got something coming up, so I do need to actually go, but I'd love to set up a second call to just keep this conversation going. And then in that secondary call, you can be more intentional around setting it up with like your discovery and the recap and taking it through all the components of the conversation at that point. So you can tell I get excited about this topic. So
awesome. Thank you. So we are going into our last 10 or 15 minutes of questions here. So let's try to motor through because we've got a lot to get to. So one of them that I think is going to a question that a lot of businesses have right now is we're unable to open per current regulations, but I'm trying to figure out where to start and how to communicate to our former customers as we roll out, because we know a lot of businesses can open kind of incrementally. I have lots of content to share, this questioner says. Risk protocols, only limited availability. So where do we start to communicate the reopening? Is that Q&A email, website teaser, Zoom meeting, social media? What would be your recommendations as far as kind of a little marketing plan as you reopen? Nick, do you want to take that one?
You know, I actually want to defer to Cindy. I think that Cindy would probably have good communications on this particular thing, and then I'll chime in.
I was responding to the last person who was doing something. I was typing a chat into the person's piece that had the question. This is about reopening, Melissa. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's about reopening because some of the reopening is phased in. And so the question is, where to start
Yes.
and how to communicate to former customers as we roll out and open up again. So what
Yes,
would be the
perfect.
plan?
Yes, my husband is in the same situation. I'm sitting in this office. He's the clinic director here at the Neurodevelopment Center of Colorado, and that is exactly, what they're trying to also do is roll out how to message this to their current clients and to communicate with them about the phases. And so I love phases, I love stages, and I love incredibly specific detail about what each phase and stage means. So for example, phase 1 of our re-entry is we are doing, I'm just using this as an example, but it's, we're doing virtual health only for the first week. That means you can call this number and do this, and here are the boundaries around that. Please call us. And phase 2 starts on this date till this date, and that means we are all wearing masks in the office. We are requesting that you wash your hands prior to coming in. We will have hand sanitizer in the office for you. We will remain a 6-foot social distancing practice and feedback. See, we expect phase 3 to begin as per the governor, on this date, and assuming all goes well, we can't wait to be back to more than 10 people and, all these things. But, people really crave like knowing what to do. And that includes on Zoom calls, they need to know, they want to know the rules and what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. And have we not hit a place where that is all up in the air? So I would say make a plan, make a content marketing plan. Frequency is important as well. Keep it fairly short and to the point. We're all reading so much email right now. It's a little overwhelming. So do not just write and then hit send. Write it, walk away. How can I shorten this? Have somebody read it. Jenny Morse does an amazing program with writing emails and how to make that really sing. I had her on an interview that's going to post shortly this week, but she talks a lot about that revision process. So, have an intentional plan, roll it out, and just keep communicating. People like to hear from you.
So are we doing this on email? Of course, you said, what about video, social media? What are your thoughts?
I love video personally. I do a lot of it myself. It reaches the audience I'm with, but that's a good option for giving people personal touch, and tone of voice can be communicated through video and audio in ways that it can't through emails. If you're a brick and mortar business, put a sign on your door, welcome back, here's our plan, go to this website, put a little QR code, they can put it on their phone. There's all kinds of ways to be sure that the message gets out. I hope that was helpful. I'll pass it to Nick now.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. I so love her insights. It's just amazing. The two things that I would say are, look at what King Soopers / Kroger has been doing and the information that they've been sending out and the structure of the information they've been sending out. That has a really even, consistent flow to it. It's not panic inducing. It's very measured in terms of why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing. They're talking about what they're doing to keep their employees safe. They're talking about what you need to do inside their stores to keep their employees safe. And they're talking about what they're doing in terms of like cleaning and all the rest of this stuff. I think also, as Cindy said, set those expectations. Teach people what they need to know in order to interact well with your business right now, because there's going to be a lot of need for grace. And I think we've seen this in some of the articles that have come out. There's a lot of like, okay, do we wear masks? No, we don't have to wear masks. Now we have to wear masks. Now we should wear masks. And should we wear masks while we're mowing our lawns or other things like that? And so there's a lot of confusion. But if you teach people what they need to know and then give a little bit of grace, like, okay, look, we're going to make this dummy proof by putting tape in 6-foot increments outside our doors, so that if you're not quite ready yet, have you prepped before you come into our business? Or do you have a sign out there, like a sandwich board or something like that, that they can see, like, okay, I need to have my mask, I need to have this on, I need to do these things, and just give people a little bit of prep grace area where they can just like, all right, this is how I'm going to do it. Also understand that people are going to, like me, are going to not want to interact with your business unless you've taken certain levels of precautions. And some of them might be insane level anxiety type precautions. And so I'm still looking for businesses that are doing curbside pickup or, you know, other things like that. And if those things get phased out, guess who I'm not shopping with anymore? And it's really, it's just, it's cognitive dissonance is what it is. Because I like those businesses, but I'm not going to shop with them if they don't have those extra things. So build that into not just your communications plan, but your marketing and your sales plans from here on out, because it's going to be important until, you know, a year, 2 years ago, 2 years from now, when they have the herd immunity. So this whole thing is going to be an exercise in you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. And I'm going to take my dollars and shop with them in places that support my level of crazy.
Okay, I have a question from Christy. It's hard to figure out, she says, a long-term pivot when you have a brick and mortar tavern or any sort of enterprise like that that thrives on togetherness and connection. Any thoughts of how she can kind of maintain her connection, or any brick and mortar? How should we be connecting with our clients when they can't come, or in limited quantity can come into our place of business?
There's a great Facebook group, which is run by one of the marketing companies here in town. It's just friends of, you know, Old Town Fort Collins, fans of Old Town Fort Collins. And you could do a similar thing with your business, you know, fans of, you know, your tavern. And you could do curbside. You could do when groups of larger than 10 are allowed. You could do a picnic in the park or a virtual picnic on Zoom. And the place that I would point you to that is absolutely crushing it, and I mean, like, just, it's like they knew that there was an epidemic coming. Snooze has been absolutely crushing this. Their communications are on point. They did an 80s dance party, a 90s dance party. They did a costume contest. And if you go in and pick up, they're in their, you know, they're full in, you know, costume and whatever else, doing their full PPE and everything else like that. But it's still, their communications have been so on point about everything, having, you know, their customers, their friends, their fans, and something bigger than just, you know, hey, let's support this small business. It's something bigger by going and getting your pancakes on the weekend that you're supporting. You know, whether it's their support the snooze team members, educational fund, or their environmental practices or other things like that, they give you a way to latch on and engage. And so in terms of pivoting, still think about the value instead of the utility, right? The utility is the food, you have a place to sit and a table and you're connected. The value instead is, what are they getting when they're there? Are they playing games? Like if you think about D&D, are they, you know, they're playing games at the tabletops and whatever else. They have the specialty drinks and whatever else. And that might be through curbside pickup, but are you engaging that community in the way that allows them to connect with each other and have those virtual moments so that they can connect with each other in that same way through your business?
I'm wondering if there might be ways to do some kind of fun rewards-based stuff prior to being able to come in and get together all at once. Like, plan a party for when you can do this, and what kind of punches on a card or, you know, tokens can you receive virtually with every purchase, with every $10 that would get you a free drink when you can come back in. I mean, I'm just thinking restaurants, but yeah, what kind of stuff can you do people want fun right now. They want to just have fun and connect with people on virtual picnic is a great idea if there is a thing to do. My sister-in-law has become the director of fun for my family, my 14-person extended family, and we have now established family-wide calls, mostly to keep in touch with my aging in-laws. But the first one was when my daughter's birthday was during quarantine, and she had everybody fill out a list, and it was like, who knows Kate the best? We all had to guess what her favorite color was, what her favorite, ice cream flavor was, what chore she hates on Saturdays, and then we all had to answer and go around the horn, and it was orderly. We have played Categories, Taboo, and a whole host of other games on Zoom to give it structure. Otherwise, Zoom calls can be annoying and not fun. So that's my thought. Allison, what do you got?
Yeah, so I just have an example of a person that I feel like is doing this well. It's not a restaurant, but it's a musician who relies solely on gigs, right? And he's been a musician for like 15 years and does all these in-person events. And he's actually out in the Philadelphia area. And he's like one of my favorite musicians. I haven't seen him play for years because I live in Colorado. And he's been doing these virtual shows. So I'll actually put his name in the chat and then also in the Facebook group. But he's been doing these virtual happy hours on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And the last one that he did this past weekend, he actually had like a Zoom background, or like it was like streamed on Facebook Live. And there's actually a really cool podcast interview that he did that shared some of the technology things that he did to be able to do the show. And so if you're a tavern and you have entertainment of some sort, partner with those people. And what he does is he has like a virtual tip jar set up. So it's not mandatory, but it's a nice way for him to like, and he gets to do what he loves, right? Like he's getting to play his music. He's keeping his skills up. And then he's wearing like the t-shirt for like a different bar or a different brewery that like provides the beer for that night's happy hour. And for me, it's like I'm in Colorado and I'm getting to watch my favorite musician who I haven't seen for years. And it's like, I love it. It's such a fun way for him to be out there giving us something fun. They even planned like a block party for like once this all comes back together. And it was like, if you're on today's live virtual show, like you get to come to the block party. So think about like, how can you engage? Like, you don't need to come up with the solutions yourself as the business owner. Engage your employees, engage your vendors, engage your fans, and some creative genius is hidden in there. It's just realizing that like you don't need to be in problem mode, you can be in solutions mode when you tap into the creative genius of all those people around you that also want to see you succeed.
I love that. I love that. All right. I think we're pretty much done with our question time. There are some important announcements from our panelists in the chat, so hopefully you're keeping up on that. But I wanted to just do a round robin of any final thoughts, top 3 tips, or anything that our panelists would like to share as parting words. And then also I want to make sure they tell us what is the best way to keep in touch with them, the best way to interact with them, whether that's social media or where else, and also make a point to let all of you know that we will be sending out an email after this summit, after our session today, with all of their contact information on it. So if you happen to be driving in the car, don't do anything unsafe. But we will make sure and get the information to you one way or another. And also it's all in the Facebook group as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Cindy for any last words.
Well, thanks, Melissa. This has been really fun. Last words are just to embrace this time and be curious. What can you do to really hone your messaging while you have this opportunity for deep work, which is so often not easy to find. I know that's true for me, but people can find me on LinkedIn. That's definitely the place to find me the most. And I have a Facebook page as well. And I'm on Instagram, and my website is onpoint-communications.com. But the other day, every single day of the week at 9 a.m., I will post a helpful tip that helps your messaging improve. So Monday through Saturday, depending on whether it's a tip or an event, I've been kind of rolling out that weekly calendar, and 9 a.m. every day, you will find a tip for me. I have a YouTube channel with lots of great videos. Some are small, some are more like mini tutorials, but I'd be happy to have a networking call with anybody here to learn more about you and help you shine. Help you nail it.
Thank you. How about you, Nick?
I think there's a lot of reason to be hopeful right now, even though things might seem dark. There are a lot of businesses and business owners out there willing to help you and to help you brainstorm how to pivot well. So if you feel stuck or trapped or, generally doom and gloom, there's still reason to be hopeful. So do reach out for help. don't get stuck thinking that you have to bootstrap your way back into profitability or survivability. Reach out to the resource hubs that exist, the SBDC, the Loveland Business Development Center, WeBo, amazing events like this. You're here, you're doing the thing, you're, working on thriving. And I think that speaks to your survivability quite a bit. So don't fret. There are reasons to, be wary right now, but there are also a lot of reasons to be very hopeful. So feel free to reach out using the communications methods they'll send out. But definitely, if any of your questions weren't answered, Nick at WTFmarketing.com and check out startupfoco.com for more video resources that get posted throughout this time.
Thank you so much. Alison?
Yes, it's interesting being an organizer and a panelist and a like trying to do all the things all at the same time. I really just want to highlight, like Nick said, like there is definitely hope. We can hold on to hope here. And I think that don't think you need to spend a lot of money to thrive at the end of this. There is such a huge supportive community here in Northern Colorado, and reach out to those different organizations you can partner with. SBDC, Startup Week. I got involved in Startup Week, and I feel like that opened so many doors for me, and people were like, oh, you've been in business forever. I'm like, no, I started last year. So, kind of step into it boldly and confidently, and just hold on to that hope and that trust, and know that you're doing great things in the world, and this pandemic can't stop you. So I would love to connect with any of you through WeBo Network, or I put my contact information in the chat box. Just really grateful that you're all here. You are continuing to show up and doing things for your business. So just keep at it. Keep doing the things.
Thank you so much. I thank you all as panelists. I want to just kind of draw together a few tips that I pulled out of all the great advice that we got today. Number one is knowing your clients, your customers, and checking in with them, and however that looks. And it doesn't have to be salesy or sleazy. It can just be checking in with them and saying, hey, how are you doing? What kind of value can I be offering to you right now to help you with my specific expertise? Number two would be just be open to opportunities, because they're all around you. And so when we keep our minds open and our hearts open to what our clients are needing and our customers need, we never know what can come of that. So and the next one is to just create that solid strategy for keeping in touch with your customers, whether that's through email, collecting email addresses, setting up that Facebook group to create that community, and just keeping in touch with them, and regularly doing that in a value way. It's not in just adding to the noise, but adding to the value, as Nick so wonderfully said. And then finally, and this is what I've learned over the last 3 weeks, is consider that you may be capable of a ton more than you know that you are. You are capable of so much, and so many great businesses and opportunities and things have started during tough times, whether it was 9/11, I was part of that in New York, and whether it was the 2008, the Great Recession. So many things have come out of that. So I just invite you to open your heart and your mind to the opportunities that are around you. And I hope that we have inspired some of that in you today. And just some final notes. Tomorrow at same time, same place, 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time, our next session kicks off, and we're talking all things human resources, team building, connection, and managing and being part of a virtual workforce. So we have some HR experts, some team building experts, and we'll see Alison again on that one. So, so join us for that. Also, just a reminder that the Facebook group is live, and lots of discussion going on in there. We're posting the links to the replays. So the video from this session will be available in there later on. And I think that's all that we have for the notes. So again, just thank you all for being here. we hope that we've given you lots of value today, and please do check and look for that email to come out later today with all of the contact information for our panelists today. And hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you again here tomorrow. Thanks all.